everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. This is it. This is the third episode. I wasn't sure if I was going to get it in today. I've literally just got home from work to record this show now. It's around 9 PM UK time. Hopefully, this goes out for Saturday evening. But I can let you guys down. I said to you earlier this week, if you want 3 shows, you ask for it and I'll deliver. So here we are. You demanded it. You pounded the table. And by pounded the table, I mean gently clicked a keyboard a few times. And here is the hyped third show of the Outside Insider podcast. So if you're new, if you have not yet hit subscribe and you're thinking, why am I listening to this? Then this is your time. There is no excuses anymore. You've got YouTube, the big red button. We want to hit 5,000 subscribers on there by Christmas, so it would mean the world to me to have you as part of that movement. Also in the description, we've got links to iTunes and Spotify. So there is literally no reason not to hit one of them and get this show delivered to your device for free, instantly, by me, in hand, in the back of a Domino's delivery van, every single week. So, what are you waiting for, is the real question. If you're not waiting, don't worry about it. We're going to get straight in to what has been a crazy week for the Eagles. And this is going to be a slightly lighter show, probably a slightly shorter one, just because, 3 shows in 1 week. I know the Eagles are a high-octane team, and I know there's a lot to talk about, but I think we've done a good job of covering most bases this week, right? Apart from the one glaring obvious one. But it has been so chaotic in the last 7 days that it almost feels like that heartbreaking, gut-wrenching loss to Dallas is all but a distant memory. I can't be the only one that feels that way. The Eagles are coming off, arguably, I would say, the most heartbreaking loss of the Doug Peterson era. That was a dream-crushing loss. And somehow, that doesn't even matter. That is the tiniest drop in the ocean right now. An ocean of despair, if we're brutally honest. But this team, it can't have a day off. Get it? There can't be one day where something doesn't happen. I struggle to understand. I know it's the second biggest sports market in America. I know the fans are absolute diehards. And you guys alone, just listening to this show, are absolute diehards. But can we not have a day where we can just put our feet up and relax a little bit without worrying who's injured or, what playoff consequences are going to happen, or is it coaching on a carousel now? You never know just what's going to happen in a day in the life of an Eagles fan. It's just absolutely crazy. And the one thing this week has been the Carson Wentz injury saga. Now, I spoke quite heavily about this in the second show. If you haven't listened to that, I would recommend going back and doing so. And I also wrote an article on it, which actually got picked up by Bleacher Report, so that was pretty cool. But I'm not here to talk about the same old ground. I think by now we understand there has been a tremendous misfire with the Carson Wentz injury. Now, whether that's a misdiagnosis, whether that's Peterson saying, yeah, he's questionable for an injury that takes 3 months to heal, that's like saying, yeah, I'm coming out tonight, lads, don't worry, when you're lying there in your pyjamas and you have no intent on moving because you're binge watching How I Met Your Mother eating a tub of Haagen-Dazs. But this does raise a very prominent issue, and I kind of liken it to if you've ever been in a toxic situation, whether that's a relationship or a friendship or a job, that you don't really realise how bad it was until you get out of it. I mean, just take the DIY workplace, for example. The amount of bad stories that I've got from there, you've probably heard them over the past month or so. Great example. I didn't really see the problem when I was there. It was a job, it was money, and you get out and you realise how much it was holding you back. Not to get too personal, got out of a toxic relationship at the very, very start of the year. I know it's actually the end of last year, and it kind of just dragged over a bit in trying to cut those ties. But that was awful, and I didn't see in the thick of that just how damaging that was to my own, mental and emotional well-being. But when you're in the thick of it and you think things are good, you tend to ignore red flags because everything else kind of just overrides that, right? There's no reason to look at them because you've got a million other things racing in your mind. And I do liken that to last season with the Eagles. Now, last year, the Philadelphia Eagles went on the most miraculous run. Even before the playoffs, Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate. He should have won it that year if not for an injury, right? So when he goes down and Nick Foles comes in and all this hype starts again and they go to the playoffs and go to the big dance and do the unthinkable, that you kind of forget that if we focus just on medical staff alone, Alshon Jeffrey played through an entire season with a torn rotator cuff. and we didn't find out until after that season finished. He needed surgery and missed all of the off-season and the following pre-season. Was that not a red flag that something is massively wrong with this medical staff? Brandon Graham had to have off-season surgery, and they said it could take till October until he gets firing on all cylinders again. There's a reason Howie Roseman hasn't negotiated that contract. There are numerous other players that in the last year or so, Jordan Matthews is absolutely one of them, who, prior to his leaving was misdiagnosed twice, gets to Buffalo, and they actually find out what the problem was. But just how bad is this medical staff, or how worrying is it? I mean, John Dorenbos could have actually died. Like, physically died. He gets to the Saints, who, in their medical, find a heart condition which somehow the Eagles have missed. Is that not terrifying? Is that not worrying? There is something huge and terrifying going on in Philadelphia right now. And I applaud every player coming out and talking about it. And, when Jordan Matthews first came out in that interview and said what he said, fans were so quick to turn on him and say, yeah, you're just bitter. I'd be bitter. Like, Jesus Christ, I would be bitter. If they misdiagnose an injury twice, I get the wrong treatment. I mean, let's be brutally honest here. At this point in time, is it really, really that far-fetched to assume that the Lane Johnson PED thing was actually born of innocence? Is it that naive to think that actually, maybe Lane Johnson had a point, he had no idea what was going on, and the coaching staff are just throwing in whatever they can find in their locker room? No, I'm not going to point the finger at individual cases, I don't think that's very fair, but even with someone like Jordan Hicks, who's played one complete season since being drafted by this team, is it that naive now to imagine that maybe the medical staff have made some errors along the way as well? Is it really that difficult to fathom? And that's worrying. The fact this is a discussion is worrying. Because even if this Eagles medical staff has been perfect in their evaluations, right? That there have been so many murmurs, so many whispers, so many stories that just don't add up, that this is becoming like the Sixers all over again, and there is reason to doubt. It's sort of like, if you know someone has cheated in a previous relationship, you're probably not going to trust them as much as you would do with someone who you know hasn't. That's just the way it goes. And it takes a lot to build that trust. The problem is, this Eagles coaching staff is in a relationship and going, nah, I'm going to go out every night, go to the strip club, but I'm only there for the slot machine. Yeah, I'm only there with my friends, just having a good pint of lager. So, nothing to worry about, Doris. Don't you worry, you sit there at home playing Scrabble and all of these. I don't know what kind of relationship this is, but, And just looking back at the 2017 injuries, where Jordan Hicks last year was obviously placed on IR. Oh no, I beg your pardon. Yeah, it was after week 7. So here's an interesting statistic, okay? Here's the games Jordan Hicks has started since 2015. 8, 16, 7, 10. He missed half a season year 1, half a season year 3, and the best part of a third of a season in year 4. And you're telling me that there is no correlation, none whatsoever, between the Eagles medical staff and this current whatever problem is infatuating this unit and what we're seeing. And it's strange, you've got someone like Donnell Pumphrey as well, who was obviously phantomly placed on IR last year, then comes back with no difference whatsoever, ends up being cut by the team. There's just so many strange players, like Joe Walker ends up getting placed on IR right at the end of the season after being labelled as questionable for 2 games. I believe it was the 2 weeks before Carson went down as well, because it correlated very untidily with the Jordan Hicks injury. So they lose Joe Walker, he's questionable for 2 games, comes back for 2 more, and then ends up on IR. It's a very, very difficult situation to read. And there are some players coming out now who are not only just vouching for those problems, but really shedding some unfortunate light on the nature of the business. And I mean, obviously we've all seen, I assume by this point, the Emanuele Acho video. I've tried to get him on this podcast, unfortunately. I mean, I emailed him last year. We had brief contact. Unfortunately, he was doing his big-time ESPN work. So massive shouts to him to constructing that career off the back of the NFL. But in case you haven't heard it, here is what Emanuele Acho had to say. We're going to kind of pause it and analyse it, and we'll go through it together. As you can see, I'm doing that on the fly. We don't have the budget of a radio station, but bear with us, alright? So here's what Acho, a former linebacker of the Eagles, had to say about the Carson Wentz injury.
Just saw Carson Wentz is hurt, so it's time for me to keep it real on the Eagles medical staff. First things first, have to establish I'm not bitter. If I never would have got released several years ago, I wouldn't be where I am, one of the youngest national analysts on ESPN.
Right, think about that straight away. I have massive, massive respect for Emanuele Acho. I really, really do. I think he was a good little player for the Eagles during his time there. I think he had great upside, and more importantly, I think he is a fantastic broadcaster. You can hear it in his voice. He's got the charisma. But did you really need to throw that in there? Did you really? I'm not bitter, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am now. That's sort of like, you know, someone coming out of a relationship and going, I'm not bitter she cheated because I'm with this 6 out of 10 now after being with that 10 out of 10, so it doesn't matter. Like, it's literally that. It's a weird flex, but okay, that one. I really don't understand why you can't just say, I'm going to keep it real on the coaching staff. This is what happened with my injury. Maybe because Eagles fans will jump down his throat. Maybe he had a point. I don't know. But let's carry on.
Back to the main point, though. Why did I say they were suspect? I knew a guy when I was playing. He had a torn ACL. He got told he had a tight hip flexor.
Now, I'm no medical specialist, but a tight hip flexor sounds to me like it's in the hip, right? A torn ACL, an anterior cruciate ligament, and you can see I've been doing my research, is in the knee. Now, either this is a little bit of an over-exaggeration, or the Eagles medical staff are literally... You know, I'm not sure if you guys have it in America, but the DK books, like when you've got all the diagrams of the human body in for like when you're in elementary school, is that what you call it? Elementary? I don't know. But when you're like 5 years old, you're learning about the body and you're like, this is a head, this is an eye, that's a leg, don't injure that bit, it hurts, right? They just point at that diagram and go, oh, you've hurt your bloody... Oh, what's that? You're flexing your... Oh, hip flexor. That's what... It's a bit tight, that, isn't it? Your hip. Oh, can't bend over properly. Can't bloody move. It must be your hip. And actually, the guy's there, you know, just with a fully imposable leg. So, that's an interesting story, but we'll carry on.
My thumb completely fractured. I was told that pop was probably just scar tissue. Again, these are just a couple...
Does a thumb have scar tissue? I mean, it's a great song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I'm really worried about this Eagles coaching staff. And also, Emanuele Acho is built like Batista, so I'm not going to disagree with him too much more.
Stories, I'm not going to put too many names to it, because that's not the focal point. But here's what you got to remember. The training staff works for the team, not the players, so they have the team's best interest in mind. You, as a fantasy football owner, a fantasy football player...
I don't know why they brought fantasy football into it. I think that is the last thing anyone's really cared about right now, when it's the physical and I guess mental well-being of players. Like, forget fantasy football. But I could genuinely, and I've done a little bit of research, again, I'm not going to reveal too much, because, again, like Emanuele said, it's not my place to go out and say, oh, this player got told he had an injured back, and it turns out he broke his arm. Like, that's not my point. Like, I'm not trying to humiliate anyone. I would hate to put anybody in that medical staff out of a job, but I at least think this does deserve some investigation. Now, I know for a fact that there is a running back who is no longer on the team, who was misdiagnosed with an injury, forced to miss time, ends up with a new team, turns out the old injury was misdiagnosed, that's how he found out. I'm not going to name him. It was a very... I enjoyed him as a running back. I thought he was a great running back for the team. I've said running back way too many times. But there are other guys who actually replied to this tweet. Okay, so names like Julian Vandervelde, who, bless his heart, was so frequently on and off that practice squad, it was heartbreaking. Like, bless him. And he's such a down-to-earth guy. I remember he was one of my first ever interviews, and he was so nice, so laid back, so chilled out. To know that he was, you know, done wrongly as well, that's upsetting. Travis Long was another one who replied to that and kind of spoke up a bit. There were a couple of other names as well during that time. And I think the other thing you have to remember is that it doesn't matter if you change the front of the medical staff unless you're going to change the culture of it. If you work at Walmart and you change the manager, you're part of a bigger chain. How that store operates is the same. And what Acho is saying is just that because they serve the team, that's always going to be the case. That it's the team's interest first. If they can get a player on the field, they will. That's what they're employed to do. So it doesn't matter if you revamp the medical staff or you go back and look at all the history and you look at what did this and what did that and in previous jobs, because at the end of the day, all medical staffs are out with the same goal, and they're not trying to do it sadistically, but they want to help the team. They want to buy the team time, they want to buy the team talent and players, but it does feel like that this is some very amateurish medical consultancy. Again, I'm no doctor. I'd like to think I've done enough research to have at least half an informed opinion. I can promise is I will be going out over the next week or so. I know it's difficult with Christmas, but just to see what feelers I can put out. Are there any other players? If you are somehow a player listening to this, hello, hope you're okay. Reach out, hit my DMs, like at Liam Jenkins 21 on Twitter. If you're someone that knows something about what's going on, I'm not going to reveal a name. For me, what I've always done differently is that I put the relationship first with the source, and it's always been my big thing. Like, people are very quick to leak information and just go, oh, a source told me this, and then that source could get in trouble for it because it's clear it's come from that one name. And I've seen that countless times. And then obviously they're going to refute to give you information in the future. So for me, that confidentiality is absolutely vital. And it's key to building a back and forth relationship where you can benefit each other. So if you're an agent, you're a player, you're a friend, you're a coach, physical fitness instructor, trainer person, just hit me up. Let me know if you know anything. It doesn't have to be the Eagles. Just what you've heard, or if you know from a personal experience, because I do want to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. There was another player I know, again, I'm going to not name him, played in the secondary, where, again, if it's, brings some validity or not, you know where I stand on the secondary and how I just obsess over it. He was misdiagnosed with an injury, and it wasn't a big deal. It just meant he missed a few weeks, and those few weeks meant that someone else during the off-season was able to climb up the pecking order. That man eventually didn't make the 53-man roster. And this was a couple of years ago, so it's no one recent. Don't start scrolling through the rosters. But it happens. And it really does suck. And for me, that was one guy I was so excited about as well. If you know me, you may have a clue who I'm on about. If not, then it's again, this isn't the focal point. The worrying part is that we have now got to a point where we are questioning a PED suspension as, was that really Lane Johnson's fault? We have got to this Carson Wentz scenario where all reports suggest that the Eagles would have no way of knowing prior to the other day that this injury existed. We're now not believing that because of the atrocities that have occurred before it, because of the red flags that have come before it. I have trust issues with this Eagles medical staff now. It's like paranoia, because you don't know. Any injury report that comes out, you don't know if that player's questionable or if his limb is hanging off by an artery. And I think it's something worth bearing in mind. Where the team goes from here, I genuinely have no idea. Because I do feel as it's a very pressing topic. There are teams in the league which suffer this many injury bites and injury bugs, but none have been stung for this long. And I think the early signs were there last year. We just didn't see them because of the magic of the Super Bowl. Like, we got to a point, right, where Alshon Jeffrey, as I said, played through an entire season with a torn rotator cuff, right? And all we could say was, wow, what a hero. He's an inspiration. Imagine the strength. How does he play like a number one receiver with that? Not, what in God's name are the team's medical staff doing other than sat there playing Pokemon Go? And that is dazzling. That concerns me. That honestly is absolutely terrifying. It's the same with Brandon Graham. It's the same with a numerous group of other injuries. Mac Hollins has missed a year with a sports hernia. Donovan McNabb had a sports hernia and was back within a few weeks. I don't know what's gone on there. It takes around a month to recover, depending on the hernia and where it is. Again, I'm no doctor here. I can't even diagnose a cough, if I'm honest. You've heard my doctor story from the other day. But there is something fishy. You can't be that wrong that many times and not expect a repercussion. It is just, like, to the core, shocking. These are athletes that rely on that medical staff to put them in the best position, to be in their best form, to help their team win. Not just have someone with a leg dangling on because Howie Roseman wants him. Like, it's not right. But let me know what you think, guys. If you've, again, got any information or you've heard anything or whatever. Even if you've got to tell a porky, again, I'm not telling anyone, I'm not revealing source information, just at me on Twitter, at LiamJenkins21. My DMs are open. I'm very interested. I want to do some more digging into... I'm going to spend a day next week looking at every change in the Eagles medical staff, their history, and were there these complications with their former employers. So that's what I'm going to be spending a week doing. Oh yeah, I'm in for the long haul for this Christmas break. But now I know we're 20 minutes in, there is no thank you next today because unfortunately I was at work all day wearing a flashing red nose for Christmas. I was the only one at work wearing one as well. There was a team of like 30 people, just me serving customers. And a customer came up to me earlier today. For those of you who don't know, I work in a retail store, which I shall not name because they are very good to me sometimes. And the customer was like, "Do you have to wear that?" as a sarcastic comment. And I was like, no, totally optional. And I made it flash right in her eye. Hope it blinded her. No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not that sadistic, but she was horrible. But no, I did want to take a minute just to say thank you because you may have known, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, and by a while I mean more than the last few months, you'll know that it has gone under quite the reconstruction. And it's got a bit of a lengthy story behind it, but when I first started it, I was having this conversation the other day where you do kind of create in the way you consume. And I had this idea that I wanted to be very similar to certain guys out there, but put my own spin on it. And what I found was that mold's already been done. Like, and in a market so congested with the Eagles podcast, it's difficult to be original when you're trying to feed off of that. And then I took a year out just because I genuinely didn't feel the workload I could have put out my best product. I had a lot on mental health wise, if I'm brutally honest, which tied me down a lot. I felt I couldn't really deliver my very best, and I'm not going to put out anything less than that because you guys don't deserve it. You know, you deserve my best every single day. That's what I'm going to try and give you. So when I revamped it this year, I was aggressive with it. I knew what I wanted to do, but it was the same sort of thing, just on acid. And about a month ago, I decided that I want to have some fun with it. Because when you're writing, this is kind of me getting a bit deep now, I'm really sorry about this, but when you're writing and you're talking about the team, and I write, 3-4 articles a day sometimes, that you're writing in a certain style, you're writing to deliver information in a certain way, or to convey a story, or to build an angle or a narrative. You're not being yourself. It's sort of like, working for a job and going, welcome to Best Buy, right? I assume you people who go to Best Buy. What does Best Buy sell? Is it like a DIY store? Hi, Deb the Cleaner. There's a hire for you. But, yeah. And I thought, you know what? With this podcast, the YouTube traction's growing with the film room. People like the whole British thing. And that was something I also tried to downplay for so long because all I wanted to do was be accepted as a respected member of the media. As someone that goes, do you know what? I want to trust Liam's opinion on this. I want to see what Liam's take is or Liam's insight. But I didn't want the British label to come with that. And then I think I hit the Eagles game in London. And meeting so many of you was the most overwhelming feeling imaginable. To know that people, one, somehow recognised me, two, knew who I were and wanted to chat or buy a drink or hang out or whatever it may be. Like, it meant the world to me. And I didn't realise I was having that kind of impact. And I was like, if people are connecting with me because of that, then I can be myself on this podcast. Like, this is my show. I'm just going to be me. And I made one show. And I was just overly sarcastic, a lot of bad analogies, the car takes came out, the for the brand saying was born with my emotional speeches, which for the brand, this is one of them. And I just started being me. And I had the most fun I'd ever had doing a podcast doing that show. And whether it took off or it didn't, I didn't care, because I was being me. And now we've got to a point where, I've got a couple of you guys tweeting me Ariana Grande's thank you next tweet in preparation for getting fan questions. I've got you saying comments that I'm your favourite podcast, or that you're listening to it on the way home, or you use it on the drive to work. And I swear, it's so hard not to. I actually am tearing up. It's I can't really describe that over a microphone, but it's the most incredible feeling to know that just the raw me talking about the Eagles and not having to be as serious or as analytical or as in-depth, and to make it fun and to make it different and fresh and just put a spin on it that I know no one else can deliver, because no one is as self-deprecating or as as cold and damning as me. And that's my thing. I've always been that way, and to know that you guys accept that, I can't put words on how much it means to me. And that's why I kind of like just growing this, and I keep asking for those subscriptions, because the more of a collective we have that discuss these shows in the comments, the more fun we have. And getting to know you all through those comments, and knowing that you listen, knowing that you make me a part of your everyday life, is the most remarkable feeling on the planet. And I'm so grateful for every single one of you. You're going to get another one of these speeches at New Year, by the way, but I really am. And you know, I've made you a part of my daily life as well. And there isn't a day that goes by where I'm not thinking about an analogy or a podcast topic, or how to make it relatable, or, you know, what work stories can I bring, or just trying to point things out. And it genuinely means everything to me that this podcast is reliably getting a few hundred views, and it is building on iTunes, and now it's on Spotify, and there are some big plans in the new year. But just thank you for letting me be a part of your everyday life. I know there's even one person that listens to this who's going to hate the fact I'm mentioning her again, that isn't an American football fan, has never watched a game, but still listens to it. And stuff like that, it does make me tear up a little bit, I'm not going to lie, because just, yeah, thank you so much for absolutely everything. Like, it's been bit of an emotional year, not gonna lie, a bit up and down, but we made it, and I'd like to think now I'm delivering my best podcast content I ever have, and that's not gonna stop. Hey, well, it might. I mean, you might actually hate this. You might be turning off by now. But in case you don't, we're gonna keep going, and we're gonna talk about the Rams, because before I start blubbing my eyes out, I've not even drunk tonight. Like, I'm meant to be going out later. I've not even touched a bud yet, and I'm this emotional. Oh, I'm going to drunk call tonight, aren't I? No, Liam, you're stronger than this. You've not got trust issues with the Eagles coaching staff. Just imagine drunk calling an Eagles doctor and them going, it's not you, it's me. This is derailing very, very quickly. Back onto the Rams. Eagles come into this weekend with a lot on the line. A lot on the line. Well, everything on the line. And just take everything out of the equation for a moment, other than this. Black or white, yes or no, will the Eagles win on Sunday night? I'm assuming the majority of you said no. And why would they? I've never seen a team this banged up and beaten. It is like a scene from a Rocky film. Like, it is just borderline bullying at this point. I mean, like, I was a kid at school that was thrown in a skip at times, and I don't think even I was beaten up as bad as this Eagles team. I mean, we should go to my school stories. I had loads. I remember, should we go down that road? I think we could. I mean, there was one where, first week of school, I had 3 different rucksacks because kids kept snowboarding them down these little grass hills and breaking them. And my mum was like, what's going on? And I was like, keep dropping my bag down the stairs. And yeah, that didn't end too well. So, you know, this Eagles team are those rucksacks just ruined. Like, all the stuff's gone everywhere. Like, there's injuries, the thing is, there's injuries and there's cluster injuries, and as a betting man, you look out for cluster injuries, because that is what can break a team. The Eagles have got 75% of their secondary missing from when they started the year with. You have now got Jordan Hicks out probably again, Josh Sweat out, Derek Barnett out, Michael Bennett questionable, Tim Jernigan likely out, let's be honest. I think Tim Jernigan may have played his final snap as a Philadelphia Eagle. Carson Wentz out. Running backs out. Like, is there anyone that's not affected at this point? Really? But there's one area, and I wrote an article on this the other day, so if you haven't seen it already, breaks down a fundamental weakness in this Rams team to a degree. Now, I want to roll your... I was going to say eyes back then I thought that was a very kinky conversation we are not getting into. Now, I know I've given you a big soppy speech. We're not at third base yet, alright? We're at first at best. We've bunted the ball. Don't push your luck. I'll draw you back, your minds back to this quote, okay? I'm not going to give it context. You'll know who it's from. Peyton likes Wentz as a player, but his player personnel analyst Ryan Herman gives him trends and numbers every week. And Peyton tells the group 2 interesting ones about Wentz from Herman. The Eagles are 1-11 when Wentz plays, and they allow more than 26 points. And he's 0-9 when he passes for between 308 and 364 yards. The point being, if he does that, the Eagles likely won't be running the ball, and the Saints will feel they can beat a one-dimensional offense. Well, the Saints won that game 48-7. Now, the context of that quote that was so diligently crafted by Peter King, well, I understand is vulnerable. You can pick holes in it and go, no, it was a looking season. Fine, but the point is it worked, okay? They got Wentz on his back foot. They tried to make him throw from behind, and it really, really worked. Stunningly so, because the Eagles didn't win the ball. And it was a lot less on Carson Wentz than it was on Doug Peterson. That's who they were targeting with that quote. But it did. My Xbox is just turned on randomly. That is bizarre. There's an unrelated quote. But what if we apply that logic to a Rams offense that has outscored opponents 425 to 313? That had, Brandon Cooks, who's now had, I think, 3 consecutive 100-yard games between week 9 and 11. And for a team who hold the ball for an average of over 30 minutes a game, under 8.7% of their drives end in 3 and outs. Right? But Jared Goff last time out threw 4 interceptions against the Bears. That's not a good look, Jack. I was going to call him Jack, thinking of Dak Prescott. It's not a good look, Jack Goff-Scott. Jack Goff-Scott, that's what we're going with. Not a good look, Jack Goff-Scott. And, it's the thing is, you can look at that game and say, well, it's the Bears defense. They might be the best in the NFL. They've got that big man who they traded from the bloody Raiders, who's doing very, very well and just ruining everyone's life, and his name rhymes with Spiel Stack, right? That's fine. But do you know that there are 3 more games this season where Goff has completed less than 55% of his passes? He completed 51 in the win over Detroit on Thanksgiving. There are 3 more after that where he's completed less than 55%. Now, I don't think this Eagles secondary is really down to the task of stopping Brandon Cooks. I don't think the run defense is down to much at this point. And stopping Todd Gurley seems like the impossible job. But they can get pressure on a quarterback who has now been prone to throwing 5 interceptions in his last 3 games and is not really an elite quarterback yet. There is a lot of pressure on Jared Goff. We know Sean McVay works wonders. The argument with Jared Goff would be that, well, he wasn't really great under Jeff Fisher for that first season, and now he's some sort of mythical god that is showing signs of weakness. Very much like a Mitch Trubisky and Matt Nagy situation, only a little bit better than Jared Goff is. Who is the better looking quarterback, Jared Goff? I would say, from an unbiased perspective, I'm a totally straight man, I don't know. Jared Goff's got that little Playboy charm about him, but Mitchell Trubisky's got that cute little bear that you'd get in a Happy Meal look. So, depends what you're after in a guy, I suppose. I mean, if you're a woman watching this, who do you think? Leave a comment, Trubisky or Goff. Who would you rather? We're not doing it. I knew I shouldn't do this podcast sleep deprived. My intent is, you're not going to stop the Rams' offensive invasion. You can't do it. It's like trying to stop... We're not going to make war puns. We're not going to make war puns. It's like, I don't know. It's like trying to stop a flood with a flannel. You're not going to get anywhere. But if you turn the tap off, the water can't run. And all you've got to do is deal with the water that's already there. And that is a really bad analogy. But the point I'm making is that Jared Goff is not invincible. He is not Tom Brady. He is not one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. He is not Patrick Mahomes. He is not Phillip Rivers. He is a mere mortal, is Jack Goff-Scott. And if the Eagles can get enough pressure, if they can use their defensive backs, if they can use their linebackers, draw up a blitz, bring him down, get him off his comfort spot, then why can't the Eagles hang around? Because let's be honest, this offense can't really perform any worse than it already is. And with Carson Wentz out and the offense lightly simplified for Nick Foles, it's not as if production dipped last time around. If all Nick Foles has to do is hang in there after the defense played the game of its life last week, and they can repeat that performance, I think there's a chance the Eagles win this game. And if I am a betting man, which I am definitely not, I'm taking the Eagles and the points, because I'm getting close to 2 possessions in a game which I genuinely believe will be maybe 38 to 29. I'm taking the Eagles. And whether they went outright, I don't know, but I think they cover the spread. And that is what we're going to end on. A note of positivity. And guys, if you have liked this show, please make sure you subscribe. We're going to have 2 shows next week, unless you demand 3 again. Please don't demand more than 3, just because it's a bit difficult to spin as many plates as it. I mean, I've had to compensate the Madden video this week, and I know you all love that and seeing me fly around on different faces. So, you know, especially in the run-up to Christmas and the second job and everything, it is difficult to get these shows up, so your support really is appreciated. So if you like this show, pound that subscribe button like the Eagles roster has been pounded by injuries. Alright, I mean, I want that slapped, like an absolute smack of a button, right, on the red one on YouTube, the Spotify, the iTunes. Leave a review on iTunes, leave a review on Spotify if you can, and hit the like button on here. Thank you so much for everything, guys. If you want to follow me, at Liam Jenkins 21, from myself, Liam Jenkins, I'll see you next time for another episode of The Outside Insider.